In 1920, the Bill of Rights was still a constitutional philosophy that had not really been enforced.
So in 1920, the American Civil Liberties Union was founded, and it's been called the world's largest public interest law firm, as it's worked tirelessly on behalf of the Bill of Rights for all Americans. These days, the ACLU has more than 500,000 members across the country. And we in Utah have 2,500 members as we join with affiliates in every single state.
The ACLU of Utah was founded in 1958 by 3 Mormon intellectuals at the University of Utah Law School. Alarmed by the rampant spread of McCarthyism, Spencer Kimball Jr., Adam Mickey Duncan, and Stephen Smoot joined together to protect what they recognized as an attack on the civil liberties of all Americans.
I was at the time quite concerned about the McCarthy hearings that were carried out nationally. And it was starting to affect the state of Utah in various ways. And it was bringing down some people that I regarded very highly. And I sensed there should be something that we should be taking some serious looks at. And when Mick proposed the possibility, I said, I think it's a great idea. Let's get together and go for it. So we got together and went for it.
From that moment on, the ACLU of Utah has fought to protect the civil liberties of all Utahns and has proven itself time and time again during the course of its history to be a tireless defender of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights.
Most of the time we go about our everyday life. We go to work, we go to the supermarket, and the Constitution doesn't impact us directly. It's when someone has their constitutional rights infringed upon that suddenly it just jumps into sharp focus.
The ACLU will be the first organization, if any of your constitutional rights are being infringed or trampled upon, to rush to your defense.
They're the watchdog. They are the people that make sure that people's rights are protected.
Protecting our religious liberties and preserving a clear separation between church and state have always been missions of the ACLU. Here in Utah, we continue this long tradition to ensure that every American can practice his or her religion freely without government interference.
One of the areas of concern in the state of Utah has always been the separation of church and state. Given the fact that Utah was started as a theocracy and that there are still remnants in the state of Utah of that theocracy, it's important that we make sure that there is a separation of church and state.
When Salt Lake City sold a portion of Main Street to the LDS Church, it became not only the literal intersection of church and state in Utah, but the metaphorical intersection of church and state in Utah. So regardless of perhaps the legal issues and the facts on the ground, it became full of tension about who is running the place.
The reason for separating church and state ties into the second aspect of the First Amendment, and that is that government should not try to establish a religion. And the importance of keeping government out of the business of religion is so that everybody can practice their own religions how they see fit, without government involvement, without restriction.
Equitable treatment for all Americans, regardless of their social standing, has long been a goal of the ACLU. Here in Utah, we have been a leader in ensuring that all individuals who find themselves in our criminal justice system enjoy the full measure of the rights granted to them.
They don't judge who it is who may be exercising their rights. They focus on making sure that those rights are preserved as they're set forth in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution.
In a democracy that protects everyone, you have to treat everyone fairly and equally and with the same kind of dignity that you yourself enjoy.
One of the things that really changed things in our prison system was a horrific incident of a young man being strapped in a restraint chair for days, and when he got up, he threw a blood clot to his heart and he died.
We had people with their eyes poked out, we had gangrene. There were horrendous things happening down there at the prison.
The number of inmates per cell were excessive. The lack of medical attention was deplorable.
The Salt Lake Tribune started to investigate, and together we kind of worked on trying to get a better leadership at the prison that was more open to and more visible to the community.
Yes, these men have committed crimes. They should be locked up, but we need to treat them humanely. We need to make sure that they have proper food, they have proper medical care. We need to make sure that the limited rights they have are protected, and we need to make sure that our society treats them humanely.
Throughout its 50-year history, the ACLU of Utah has battled discrimination against marginalized citizens and sought to ensure that they enjoy equal protection under the law. Today, the ACLU plays a pivotal role advocating for the rights of the LGBT community, both nationally and here in Utah.
The ordinary citizen doesn't have the financial backing, the political backing to do it on their own.
It's the role of an organization like the ACLU to ensure that there is a limit on governmental power, on the majority's power, and a role for the individual voice to say, hey, wait a second, I'm part of this community too.
And you know that if something is not working, that something needs to be addressed in terms of disparities or injustices, you can go back to them and know that there is infrastructure in place to help.
During my time, I was lucky enough that there were people that stood up saying, I'm not going to take it anymore. People like Wendy Weaver, who most people know was a teacher who merely said, yes, I'm a lesbian to a young student outside of the classroom. She had gone to 30 attorneys. They all turned her down. Either they were conflicted, they didn't think she had a good case, but it was a big case.
Wendy's case was really the first federal court case involving a gay or lesbian teacher that was decided on the particular grounds that case was decided on. And so it made national news because obviously when you can make a significant advancement in the law in a place like Utah on behalf of lesbian and gay rights, then you've really made some progress.
And along with the Wendy Weaver case was the Gay-Straight Alliance case when the kids walked out at East High.
The Salt Lake School District responded to the formation of this club, knowing that they couldn't prevent the club from forming by shutting down all the other clubs, essentially a scorched earth policy. And so we spent a good 2 years fighting the school board. We ended up being able to get that policy turned around, and of course gay-straight alliances are meeting as we speak all across the state of Utah.
I like to think that the ACLU kind of started the whole gay rights movement in Utah, where people were coming out, they were feeling more comfortable because they were seeing this in the paper. They were being encouraged by groups like the ACLU and GLSEN and everything to come out and be who they are. And that's really helped that part of our civil rights movement move along.
Since 1958, the ACLU of Utah has been the driving force for civil liberties developments in our state. We are proud of our history of service to the people of Utah, and we will continue to fight to preserve and protect the liberties granted to all Americans by the Bill of Rights and the Constitution.
If it weren't for them, I think there are any number of minorities or disenfranchised or marginalized groups in our state and in our country that would never have any kind of representation or any voice. And that's exactly what the ACLU does, and they do it in such an excellent way. I can't imagine Utah without the ACLU.
When we look back at our state history in Utah, we can see that when our freedoms have been most threatened, the ACLU of Utah has been there. What would our state look like without the ACLU of Utah? We'd have a ban on abortion, overcrowded prisons without adequate medical staff, secret government meetings, a blurring of church and state in public schools, closeted and fearful LGBT students and teachers. No matter how big the fight, for 50 years, the ACLU of Utah has been willing to take it on. And we intend to be here 50 years from now, fighting for the freedom and rights of all Utahns.